Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about spiritual magic, the law of attraction, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a life coach, tarot, oracle card reader, and medium.
My name is Stephanie, and I help people shift away from negative thinking, and it transforms their lives.
We want to thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and we want to thank our viewers who are watching us on YouTube. If you want to like us, subscribe to us, give us a review, any or all of that would be most welcome. It helps us a lot, and we are deeply grateful to you. Each week here on Co-Creation Station, we talk about a different topic, and today we have an amazing, wonderful guest that we're so happy to have here, a good friend of mine. Her name is Shishi O'Donnell, and she is a certified angel therapy practitioner and divine lifestyle consultant who offers readings and coaching services here in Los Angeles, although she has a next phase that we'll get to talking about soon, and we're not exactly sure what will happen there, but something magical and awesome will happen. So welcome, Shishi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. You're welcome. It's so wonderful to be here on Mother's Day, the perfect creation day, and to celebrate all the mothers who gave us life, and to celebrate ourselves for giving ourselves a new life every single day. We get a brand new chance to create a new life.
That is beautifully said. That's like the best Mother's Day introduction I could possibly think of.
Right? I never thought of it. Perfect creation day. Thank you, Shishi. Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful gift.
So as we were just talking about before we turned the record button on, Shishi and I have been friends for several years now here in Los Angeles. I met you when I was looking for a group of people who were into the stuff that I was getting into, and I went on meetup.com, and you were hosting something called an angel circle at the house where you lived in Hollywood, and I didn't really know what it was, but it sounded like it was what I was looking for, and it totally was. It was amazing and wonderful, and I used in the beginning I went almost every time you had it. It was every other week or every week depending on certain things. So I know you, but Stephanie is just meeting you, and a lot of our viewers and listeners probably are maybe not familiar with you. So if you could just share like who you are, your story of how you got into what you do, and what do you do with your divine guidance readings and coaching and stuff like that, just so we get an introduction to the magical world of Shishi.
Oh, thank you. I call it Shishi Land. Yes. Wherever I go, that's where Shishi Land is. But thank you. I love that. So, yeah, what is my introduction? I'm the oldest of 7 kids. My dad's from Ireland. I had a very Catholic upbringing, 16 years of Catholic education, and very conservative family. And I started my spiritual awakening path when, out of the blue, one of my sisters she got a fever and a sore throat, and within a week she had died. So she was only 20 years old, and they never found out what caused her death. On her autopsy, it said a fever of unknown origin. So I had been married for 8.5 years in my 20s, doing the corporate life grind, living life on an automatic pilot before this happened, which was just literally working myself into the ground. I can't believe how much I drank the Kool-Aid of, like, I was trying to be a senior account executive, and I would work 80-hour weeks, pay for the assistant out of my pocket. And I just really, really worked hard. The last job I had was director of business development for an internet company called E-Commerce Exchange, right next to the Board of Trade in downtown. I had the life. My husband was a workaholic as well. We had a lot of money. We lived in high rises. We lived in presidential towers on the 39th floor. I used to walk to work and wore suits and high heels. And I had a very different life. And then when my sister died, it really made me stop everything. Like, what am I doing? You can die that quickly. So what? It's that fast. Like, is this the life I would really want when I went to heaven? Like, this was the life I lived. Like, whose life am I living? Who am I doing this for? And what's the purpose of my life? And I started questioning everything and questioning my Catholic beliefs. I was 28 at the time when she passed. So I still pretty much had believed all my Catholic upbringing pretty strongly. You could say I drank the Kool-Aid of all that stuff. fear-based beliefs. And I was questioning, I knew she had sex with her boyfriend before marriage. And I'm like, if you die with a mortal sin on your chest, you're going to hell. And could my sister be in hell? And I was a wreck. And I pretty much took a breather from everything. I canceled cable TV. I stopped opening mail. I literally separated from my husband. I moved from this really nice upscale in Lincoln Park called Eugenie Terrace. It's beautiful building with the pool on the roof. Like it was like what people were trying to get to. I was like, I separated. And I just went to this artist loft community in Old Town, and I had a purple door, and I had all these artists, and I was just in my own world, and changed my life so dramatically. And I went into this dark night of the soul for like 6 months, and it was so much silence. I had not had that kind of silence, and I was only listening to one recording, which was called The Drone, which is by this composer out of Phoenix, Arizona, called Harold Grandstaff Moses. And it's just like this for 53 minutes. I had the CD playing on repeat. My neighbors thought I was insane. It sounded like there was a UFO in my apartment. That was all I listened to. I couldn't listen to radio. I couldn't listen to pop music, nothing. And I was just in this deep space. And I started having these very mystical experiences. And it started with books. A coworker gave me a book called Embraced by the Light, about a near-death story. That took me out of my sadness over my sister, because I didn't know what happened to her. And I was so happy that only unconditional love exists when you get to the other side. And the only thing they ask you is, how did that relate to love? And it's just like, life review. Let's talk about how your life went, and you feel the feelings from other people's perspective. So that gave me the freedom. It gave me an awakening. And instead of being in sadness, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt this mystical energy starting. And then I read Conversations with God, and it was like, oh, the purpose of your life is not just to, be, basically I had a fear, like, even though I was Catholic, I was like, I want to be a saint, but not like the Mother Teresa saint, because I don't want to like have to help lepers and can't wear makeup and you have to wear brown sacks everywhere. Like, I was just like wanting to be a saint, but not wanting that. So I wasn't really surrendered, because I thought God's will was different than my will. And I didn't want to have to surrender to a terrible will for my life. And in the book Conversations with God, it's pretty clear. All God wants from us is to decide and declare the highest vision that we could possibly have about our lives, and just be it. That's all God wants. God is individually expressing and expanding through each of us. That was so liberating. I'm like, yay, I finally get to follow my passion without guilt, fear, and shame. I mean, the guilt, fear, and shame thing is so heavy. And so it took a lot of liberating from that. And so I went on this mystical path, and I'm still working my job. And I was like always surfing online, looking for metaphysical articles when I should have been working, I should say. And I ran across a channeling from Rana Herman. This was 2001. It said, do you want to be an emissary of light? In huge letters on the page. If so, say yes, and I will use you. And it was this letter from Archangel Michael to humans, and I'm like, Archangel Michael, I know him, being raised Catholic, we knew about Archangel Michael. So I wrote him a letter, kind of tongue in cheek, like wasn't really believing he's real, but like, dear Archangel Michael, I really want to be an emissary of light. That's the job I really want. I want to be an everyday earth angel. If you're for real, I'm for real. I'll do this. Give me a sign. And I dated it. I know it was April something 2001. I can't remember the exact date. And I folded it and put it in my drawer. And then I had this mystical trip to Hawaii that a friend gifted me. It had to do with my music. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I did start channeling songs at this time. And I gave my CD to someone, and he invited me to go to Hawaii to swim with dolphins for this retreat. He didn't tell me who it was. And I arrived there. It's a $5,000 free retreat. And it's Doreen Virtue. And the first day she was channeling Archangel Michael. And I was like, oh my God. And that was July 21st, 2021. 2001. So I'm on this retreat. I'm like, whoa, my Earth Angel training has started. Okay, I got my sign. This is no joke. Okay, I can really trust and follow and jump off this cliff. I'm going to be supported. It seems insane. And of course, my family and all my friends thought it was insane.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, what are you? So then, of course, synchronistically, I meet a guy there who in Hawaii who happens to be going out of town for 3 months to Europe to help the souls cross over in Dachau and the concentration camps. And he's like, you can sublet my place in Santa Monica for 3 months. I'll sublet it you for $600 a month. I'm like, So I followed, it's just doors opening. If you show up and say yes, doors open. So I'm led to LA then, and I'm like packing up my car and throwing away all my stuff. And I'm on this journey, and I go from suits and every day working my ass off to all of a sudden I'm an earth angel and I have wings from the Mother Plucker Feather Company. I went through about 20 of those pairs of wings, I'm telling you, over these years. And I cut holes in the back of all my shirts so the wings look like they were really coming out from my back. And I was doing readings and singing and playing guitar, and I had the most magical 20 years. I could have never dreamed of this magical life that existed because I said yes. Now it had challenges, of course. I wasn't always like, part of the adventure was not having a lot of money, and I would have never met these people that had a ton of money and was, staying in the best places. I had very many opportunities to live my faith and show up. But I am here to tell you, you say yes to life. And the last 11 years, I've been living under the Hollywood sign in Beechwood Canyon in this beautiful home. I've loved every second of it, basically. And I feel this chapter is coming to an end. So I have to go with the flow and trust.
Do you have to, or you choose to?
That's exactly right. I choose to trust and go with the flow. Yeah. Thank you. I know. Have to is one of those words. It's a tricky one. It really feels like you're making yourself do something. And yeah, you're right. I'm not a fan of having to have to anymore. Although I will say I've had some realizations. See, I'm a life coach too, and I have a lot of trouble with discipline and routines and things that I'm trying to get my clients to do, a daily transformational activity checklist that I freaking can't do to save my life, truthfully. And I tell them that. I don't lie about it. It's like, this is a structure. Some people do better than others. I'll help you just as much as I can, but truthfully, I have trouble. But the have to, that is my number one issue in my life, is discipline. And I don't want to have discipline. And I have chosen pleasure and only things I love. And I have to say, after 20 years of doing that, it's a cost as well. It's not just like, oh, great, just choose pleasure and everything's great. Because I love to eat bonbons and ice cream and, do eat what I want. Now I'm super overweight. That's why I have to go, not have to. That's why I'm choosing and get to go on this 2-month healing retreat to cleanse my entire body and have coffee enemas up my butt every day and infrared saunas and like all that work so I can get back to square zero. So yeah.
Well, Shishi, and that's what, because I can relate to you in many ways, but in the sense of I'm all about joy and pleasure and doing what feels good. Yet currently I'm walking through something that's very challenging. And so I'm like walking through fear. I'm getting to walk through this fear, and I don't freaking like it at all, because I'd love to play and have fun, but I'm choosing to. I don't have to. I'm choosing to. I'm being led down this journey. But what I'm seeing through choosing, like, okay, God, we're doing this with you. It's like one step at a time. And when I do something I'm really scared to do and I get through the other side, I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't die. And I'm actually stronger for it. I have learned some things. I've grown. So thank you for saying that, because a lot of times we think we have to, but it is a choice. What I'm hearing you say is like, you're saying you have to, but at the same time you're like, choosing the other thing isn't working for me anymore. So I have to do that because this is where I'm called to go. This is what I want to do. Yeah.
I think it's really challenging because discipline is so interwoven with, like, I don't know, just dysfunctional behavior in the families that we grow up in. And that's not to say anything against, our parents or, here I am on Mother's Day. I want to continue to honor what she said at the beginning about all our moms and all the moms out there. But I think, because I struggle with the same exact thing. I'm working with someone right now, and we're trying to talk through that about, like, why can't I get myself to do something? Why can't I have discipline and just say, I'm going to do fill in the blank today and get it done? And for me, part of that is because I wasn't taught healthy discipline, which in my understanding of it today comes from like my higher self, comes from the part of me that's connected to the universe, spirit, higher power, God, whatever you want to say. It's really connected to like this programming. And you talked about it when you talked about your journey. that there's some sort of, it's like in my mind, there's some sort of external force telling me that there's a right way to do something that comes from someone else or some other entity, and then I need to comply with this, order from someone else or some other organization or something. Now, this is all going on in my mind, so there's no actual person, there's no actual entity, but it's almost like I have an inner war in my own mind, and I'm like fighting this authority figure that is me. It's actually me. It's like if you rip back the curtain, it's just another part of me. But I do think that it's challenging for a lot of people in that way, because we don't get taught and raised with healthy discipline that comes from our higher self. We get taught you either should do these things, or you can cheat and not do those things and get pleasure, but you're kind of being a bad person, because what you really ought to be doing is these things you should do. And all of that is outside the conversation of like connecting to my highest, because like my actual body wants healthy food. It actually wants to get a good night's sleep. It actually wants to sync with the sun and, sync up with the sun and like go to bed when it's dark and wake up when it's, light and that sort of thing. So if I'm messing with that, that's something in my mind that's getting in the way of my higher self, which would sort of do it automatically, I think, if I could get to a place where I could just relax and, as you say, flow with it. And like, I love when you tell your story, because it's so compelling for me, that because your life has become so different now than when you were a corporate warrior, on the mean streets of Chicago.
Corporate shark.
But the thing is, but for me, it's not about, because I sort of have a foot in both worlds, like the world of, angels and spirit guides and all the law of attraction stuff we talk about here, but also the world where we don't talk about that stuff. And the interesting thing to me about that is that, when people sort of say like, oh, well, you just, like if they hear your story, somebody could just be like, oh, well, that's fine for her, but I've got to pay my mortgage, or I've got to whatever. And so it's like, I'm not discouraging anyone from becoming a lawyer or working for a corporation or anything like that. It's not about what you do. It's about, are you in alignment? Are you listening to your inner self? Are you listening to the true voice that we all have within us? Because I think the roadmap for your life and for your decisions is in there. But what a lot of people do is they give their power, and I've done this, and I think I know a lot of people have done this. They give their power away to an outside entity because they think that's what they should do. And again, they're listening to this kind of voice in their head was recorded from someone else or something else. And, so I mean, if somebody's super passionate about being a lawyer, I have no issue with that. Like if they really love the law and they're fascinated by it and they get passionate about it, that's fine. But I know a lot of lawyers that hate the law. They hate it. They went to law school because they thought they should, which means they were really following somebody else's plan for their life. Might be a parent, might be an authority figure, professor, teacher, friend, who knows, wife, husband. So, I mean, I think part of my journey is just trying to assist some people in like, if they have a moment of clarity on that, like, wait, like you had, that like, wait, this isn't what I want to, like when it's all said and done, I don't want this to be the only record of what I did on this earth, to help them see that there is a way to just like connect to an inner set of instructions. And if they follow that, that's going to feel better, both in the short and long term, than if you're just sort of mindlessly following someone else's kind of prescription for your own life.
Yeah, and we're all so like little sponges by age of 7. Apparently, we're so programmed with other people's value systems and belief systems, and we adopt it and think it's our beliefs in our life. And I did that too. That's why went and majored in communication instead of studying music. That's what I really wanted to do. It's like, that's not practical. Find something, you'll need something to fall back on. So I end up doing that. As far as the discipline freedom concept, my life path is, there's this book called The Life You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman. He's the one who wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and he's a really great author. So in this book, there are 37 life paths. Mine is 3, 5, 8. So 3 is expression and sensitivity. Being an ultra sensitive, always psychic, I had so much trouble taking everything personally and thinking everyone hated me, being so insecure. My early years, I can't tell you, it went through hell. If someone just looked at me wrong, I would be like bawling in the bathroom. I mean, I was a wreck constantly, and I was just feeling everything, and I didn't understand it, but I was mainly on the negative side, younger years. So I went through all that, and thank God I've been mastered that area of the 3 expression / sensitivity. Now, the second area of mine is 5, which is discipline / freedom, which I've rejected discipline my whole life. It's like, no, I want to do what I want to do, and I'm having fun and freedom and pleasure, blah, blah, blah. And I am now seeing there's a flaw in my coaching system in a way that I didn't see before, because I'm seeing it in my own life. So here's the good news. My 8 is the pinnacle. If I can get through this discipline / freedom lesson, I get the money, right? I get the big bucks, ding, 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 ding. So that's why I'm hanging in there for that. And I have watched some inspiring speakers. Marissa Peer is one of the most popular therapists in England. Have you heard of her? She does hypnosis. She was basically saying, successful people do what they don't want to do to get where they want to go.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was referring to earlier.
I don't do anything what I don't want to do. And I'm very happily mediocre. Thank you very much. Another person, Preston Smiles. This is someone I knew in person. I met him at this is such a cool thing. This is how spirit works when you follow synchronicity. On Facebook, this really hot guy, he's married now to this famous Mexican singer. His name is Forrest Kolb. He was my Facebook friend, and he put, "Where are all my lovers at? Meet me in Descanso Gardens at 12 o'clock. So all these people, like 20 people went, and this guy, he turns around, his eyes are gold, and I'm like, that's why I want to meet this guy. He looks like Jesus, gorgeous, of course. And I end up meeting this guy, Preston Smiles, and then my friend Ava, I met her that same day. This was 10 years ago on Valentine's Day. So Preston Smiles had no money at that time. He was struggling financially. He said recently, I heard his podcast. Now he's a millionaire. He's a coach. He's in his 30s, early 30s. He has a set of 1-year-old twins, a 3-year-old, and one on the way. And he basically cashed his chips in, like putting all his stuff. He moved into his parents' basement, saved all the money, and used it for coaching and different things and now he coaches around the world and makes millions of dollars, literally millions. He has and he said something that really struck me. That's like, what I had to do it. Like, I could keep this posturing great life looking like I'm something, trying to make it in LA, or I could humble myself. And I had to ask myself the question, what am I willing to give up to grow up? And at 53 years old now, I'm at that point, like, wow, okay, I've had a great bliss-filled life, and now I have to pay the piper for a lot of that pleasure where I was trying to avoid pain. It's like, well, I don't really like exercising because it hurts, and I don't really feel like it, and I want to eat what I want. Now I have to do all that work and backtrack with that. But I want to not use the word have to, Stephanie, because that's a great point. And I'm trying to brainwash myself to the truth, which is I get to, because 80% of it is mindset. And if I can change my mindset to, I get to go on a retreat, and it's going to be so amazing. And I get to, finally have a break from trying to pay bills and all that stuff, and just be in nature and be silent and meditate and get a new set of instructions and clarity from my guides of what am I being called to do next. My coaching program was Divine Life Coaching. It still is, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit, because before it was like, we find a heart-centered purpose. It's a vision greater than yourself, guiding you forward in your life on the wings of freedom and pleasure. And pleasure, I have to tell you, is like number 1 on my list. Like, if it's not fun or beautiful or you don't love it, don't do it. And I was telling people that. And I'm seeing there are certain hard things that yes, you can change your mind and try and convince yourself that you do love it, because it's in alignment with your overall purpose. But it still is something I'm not going to want to do, that I have to move through that because of commitment to my higher purpose. Because if I really want to do what I need to have stamina. I need to be able to be strong. I need to stand on stages. If I really want to touch, move, and inspire millions of people and remind them of their own divinity, I can't be just watching Netflix all day lying around, I spent too much of my year doing that this year. So let's root for me. Is discipline going to happen? Is she going to do it? I don't know. It could happen. I've been on this journey. I think it's going to happen.
Of course you can.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things. This is a really fascinating. This is not anything we planned, and this is it's perfect.
It's never planned, especially with our guests.
Right. Yeah, we never. I guess we've admitted that on every episode. So I'm not gonna mention it.
This is free
I guess I'm
flowing.
always surprised that there was like. I think what that means is I had a plan and it's not happening, which is good. But no, but there's a couple things that were in what you just said, Shishi. I'm really fascinated by, and again, there are things I am challenged by and spend some time thinking about. But one thing is this thing about, you mentioned like your friend saying, well, successful people do what they don't want to do, meaning they do the hard things that are necessary for success, that are uncomfortable, that move you out of your comfort zone, that aren't purely pleasure driven from a physical perspective. And I understand that, and I think there's truth to that. But then I think our culture, I think one of the reasons why I get confused, and I've been confused at times in my life, and a lot of people, at least in American society, which is what I'm familiar with, get confused, is that there's some cognitive dissonance that happens over two equal and opposite messages that get sent on that. Because one message is what that person said to you, which is like, oh, successful people do the hard stuff. But then there's also this message of like, oh, successful people do what they truly love. Steve Jobs just did what he loved, and he became a billionaire. And so, and Bill Gates just loved computers too, and he's a billionaire. So you should just do what you love. And those are opposites if you just take them on face value.
They do both. They do both. They do the hard things. They do the scary things.
Would argue,
they do the things that they love. It's all involved.
I would argue that they didn't do a lot of the hard stuff, because and this is just one example, and it's a small sample size. But if you take the story of Steve Jobs, and we have a lot of information about him because so many people worked with him, and now so many people have written books about him. And the thing is, he was not a nice guy. I mean, he had good relationships with certain people, but he was mean. He was abusive. Like there's many, many people that worked at Apple over the years that have very visceral tales of getting very cruelly and almost like psychotically verbally abused by Steve Jobs. So for me, it's like, yes, he loved computers, and yes, he loved innovating, and yes, he loved playing with creative ideas and making them real and working with teams and all that sort of stuff. And he clearly did that and got successful with it. But he also, like, I wouldn't want to be Steve Jobs at the end of his life, because it sounds to me like he had a lot to be regretful for, in terms of his behavior. So, I mean, I think part of what we're talking about here is there is a both element to it. There are uncomfortable things we need to do, and we feel the best when we're pursuing something that we love or enjoy. But it's also like we don't want to be assholes. Like I think that's something in American culture of like, like when your friend says something like that, Shishi, like, oh, well, the successful people. Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump's done a lot of stuff that, is like uncomfortable. But I don't want to be Donald. I don't want to be like him.
I love what Abraham says is like, if you see a rich man who is sick and you want wealth, take what he has shown you for the wealth part and leave the illness behind. So if you see someone who is successful, but they're an asshole, take the success and leave the asshole behind. So take what you like and leave behind. Because I don't know a lot about Bill Gates, but I'm thinking he seems like a genuine man. He's very successful and he's not an asshole. So we can be successful and wealthy and healthy and happy. It's like, take what you like and leave the rest. Everybody has a choice to be however they're going to be. And there's all mixes of all of it out there.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think that's a fair point. And the other thing is, I think a lot of the time I get caught up in what is the perfect way for me to live the rest of my life? Like, how can I get it totally right? Like, how can I get the law of attraction and loving myself and being kind to others and feeling love all the time and feeling connected to God and also being productive and doing, and I think, as I think about the story of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, because I agree, I don't think I've seen Bill Gates interviewed many times. He doesn't come off as an asshole to me, but a lot of people argue that he stole Windows from Apple. And made billions off of it. So I think for me, it's like we're human, and our story's supposed to be gray. It's supposed to have an element of gray to it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like, we're not going to do every single thing like right according to some rule book. But it's just, I think there's an overarching theme of are we following our inner compass more often than not, or are we following other people's desires for us more often than not? And I think when I talk to people who are really unhappy with how they're spending their life, 9 times out of 10, what I find is in asking questions is that they really, when you boil it down, they don't realize that they're actually following someone else's plan for their life, and they haven't truly asked themselves, what would I like to do? And in our culture, sadly, sometimes people don't ever ask that. Some don't ever ask it, but a lot of people start asking it when they retire, at like 65 or 70. And then the tragedy is if you feel like, you want to go out and do a bunch of things that require a young body, you're out of luck because you spent all that, doing whatever you did, not thinking about it. But the other thing I wanted to hit on, because I love how you said this, and I've heard this before, the whole I get to, because people have told me that before too, like, oh, you get to meditate, you get to eat healthy food, it's a privilege. And it's true. That's true. But it's also like, I feel like even that phraseology is problematic for me because that still feels like an authority telling me, you're privileged. Some people can't even have the peace of a day to meditate. So you should just like suck it up and meditate. And that's not motivating for me. Like that makes me feel worse. I think for me, it's more about just finding out I think one of the gifts of meditation and the kind of work we do and the kind of coaching that you do and that Stephanie and I do and other people do is to try to find out like, what would you like to do? And some of that's going to be pleasure, like what you said, and some of it's not going to be necessarily pleasurable, but you will appreciate the results when you've done it. But I think the important thing is for you to appreciate, like the true you to appreciate it, instead of feeling like you're just paying homage. I think so many diets, it's like people are just in that mentality of like, well, I want to look better for other people, so other people will like me, If you have a health issue and a diet is a good way to deal with that, then that's a great, healthy thing. But if you're thinking the whole time about the agenda of others, especially if you're not even aware of it, then that's probably going to land you in the same place at the end as you were in the beginning, where like you're chasing the approval of others, And it's a very tempting thing to chase. Like when another human approves of us on this planet, it feels very good, But it's also like if that's how we plan our whole life or that's how we run our whole life, it's like the road to ruin, really.
Yeah. I see it like, we're in an interactive video game called life and there are infinite potential timelines. We get to choose. Sometimes we're unconsciously choosing, meaning whoever implanted their values, they're running our life, or when you have a spiritual awakening, you take your personal sovereignty in your life back. And that's what I help people do is to wake up, realize you're in control. And, the discipline equaling freedom is quite an enigma and a paradox. And I think it's all about the mindset, like what you're saying. Sometimes you have to do what you don't want to do and it's hard, but it gets you the results you want. And there is a way to look at it like that, which I'm trying to master myself. I'm in the process of understanding and redirecting my mind to perceive things instead of like, oh, these protocols are so hard. It's like, my practices are assisting me in living the highest version of my life, and I embrace those. Yeah. And I'm calling it blissipline instead of discipline.
Ooh, I love that, Shishi.
I actually heard that from one of my favorite speakers and teachers, Reverend Michael, maybe like 10 years ago at Agape. But I've always thought blissipline is a better way to look at it. So can I choose to have these routines and quote unquote, that does feel like routines are impinging on my freedom. But the freedom I got to have a healthy, strong body after doing the routines is far outweighing this illusion of pushing structure away because I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, like a little brat. And little Shishi the brat has been a superstar in this game. He's really driving the car, and it's been fun. And guess what? My adult Shishi is now taking over, saying, in the interactive video game, when we have all these choices, or like that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow, she went through one thing and there's a whole different life. Every single thing we do, every time we leave the house, it could be a whole different life. Every person we choose to interact with creates a whole another future, it's not a real word, but another future.
I think it's a word.
And people always say that, but it's not a word, and I say it too sometimes. So right now, what's facing me and I've been grappling with for several weeks, every day, I usually have such a good intuition. It's like I immediately know it. I feel it in my body. I'm 100% sure. So this opportunity, which is a friend of mine, lives in Mount Shasta and has this beautiful healing retreat. She has this $43,000 Rasha machine, which is this high vibrational frequency Tesla kind of coil type, really incredible healing, infrared sauna, all these things. And she said, I was considering having weight loss surgery. It's pretty much far along that path because I'm really have knee issues and it's hard to walk and everything. And I kind of got to this point where it's like, sort of like bankruptcy. It's like, I made so many mistakes, I better just start over. Like, that's where I was at. But there are a lot of pros and cons to the weight loss surgery and a lot of cons as well. Of course, I'd rather doing it naturally. I've been on diets naturally since whenever, long time. So she said, I want to invite you to come up for 2 months and just do this retreat. And we're going to support you, her and her husband. And in any way we can to help you implement these new routines or practices or discipline things. And I have a choice to either stay where I am, which I'm very happy. I have a great life. I have an incredible boyfriend. I'm crazy about him. We see each other every day, every other day. I would rather my little brat Shishi wants to just keep the protocol the same. People don't want to change. I don't want to change. And then there's this other vision that's guiding me forward. Like, as a coach, I could be such a better coach. I help so many people now in all my super imperfections. It's insane how much I can help other people, even though haven't mastered the area of health and well-being perfectly yet, but I have mastered a lot of other areas. So I get that, and I feel it's like the uncomfortable. It's like, I want to grow. All right, yes, I'm going to do it. And then it's like, but it's going to be so hard putting packing and storage. And then what are we going to live after? And like, it takes something to choose that level of faith. And I did it in 2001 when I literally threw out my old life completely and just packed my Ford Escort with a car top carrier and drove to California. And I'm doing it in 2021. I almost said 2012. 2021, doing the same thing. It's like, I'm willing to give up my old life to become something greater. And I'm open to whatever that looks like. I really do feel like I've decided now I'm in this surrender phase of surrendering to my higher self. It's not some outside entity called God that's like, you should do this, and if you don't do it, you're a bad girl. This is my higher self saying, what is the woman you're capable of becoming? You can either step into, you're great now, stay the way you are, it's fine. Or would you like to step into this and expand? And I'm feeling like, yes, I can do it. And I want to do it. And I know for a fact that miracles are real, and there is a safety net. Every time I take a risk and do things that other people would say, well, I can't quit my job, I got to pay my work, I have to do this, I can't travel. You freaking do it. And miracles happen. That Goethe quote, the bold step in the direction of your dreams, the universe supports you. That's definitely not the quote, but
say that again.
It's really close.
Say it again.
The Goethe quote, it's like, take one bold step in the direction of your dreams, and the entire universe conspires in your favor.
Yeah.
To support you.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And that's true. So my dream is to be the highest version of me, which is at an optimal way, healthy and strong. For me, it's not about looking good, because I'm freaking gorgeous at every weight. The whole way I've been gorgeous, and I've had wonderful relationships. It's not about just because the world's judging me. I don't care about that. It's because I want to feel healthy and strong and athletic in my body and good and have the stamina to do what I need to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying yes to that. Yes to a new level of health in my future. And who knows, I could live a lot longer.
So exciting and scary at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I was looking at your website and I clicked on your YouTube video for the chakra clearing. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And listened to the whole thing. I loved it. It was so different than some of the chakra clearing videos that I've heard in the past. I loved the music that you had playing. It was,
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. I enjoyed it, and I will definitely listen to it again.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
One thing I wanted to say before we close is one of the reasons why I love your angel circle, still do, but like I have a lot of memories from the early time where I went a few years ago. And the thing that was really, there's a lot of great things that happen at it. And just for people who don't know, like your usual format at that time was you would, we would all gather together in a circle in comfortable seats in your living room there. And you would sort of have a first part of the presentation, which was sort of like a prayer and then a chakra healing. And then you would introduce like a different topic about spirituality or whatever and just discuss it a little bit, how it relates to, the overall scheme of, living the best life you can and all that sort of stuff. And then we would all, we'd go around, and the assumption was that everyone has some sort of psychic ability. Nobody is mandated to have to use it, but we would go around and each person could get different guidance that they felt like they were pulling from higher power of the universe, spirit, however you want to think about it, for that person when it was their turn. But the most remarkable thing about it for me, and this was every time I've gone, it's been this way, is that without necessarily, like, you don't have a set of ground rules that you read at the beginning or anything, but like everyone I've ever been to, once you start the meeting, the whole conversation takes place within the absolute belief that love wins, that we're infinite beings, that the law of attraction is the law, like it works all the time. Abundance is our birthright. Like all these things that I feel like I've had on affirmation cards for years, like they're like the things that like that's the foundation, and we don't ever waver from it. It's really amazing. Like nobody, and I think one of the things that's cool is when we go around the room, if people do get into like chit-chatting about their life, like they will catch themselves. I've seen it so many times where like they're about to talk as if they would talk to a friend, coworker, or something like that, and be negative and sort of get into deprivation thinking. But then they're aware of the energy you've created and kind of how like nobody else has talked from a deprivation standpoint in the last hour. So I'm not going to do it. And they'll catch themselves in mid-sentence and go, oh, but I guess now that I think about it, I understand that, the universe is abundant, so I can totally have that. I just haven't been feeling that way lately or something like that. But I mean, that's the thing that I got many things out of your angel circle, but that was the most wonderful gift from it, was just, it was helpful. I think it helped reprogram. I think everyone I go to helps reprogram my brain, because my brain tends to just out of habit go negative. Out of habit, it can go to deprivation. Out of habit, I can forget about the law of attraction, that spirit is a benevolent force, and all these things that I now pretty strongly believe. I can forget all that stuff and just get caught up in day to day and be negative and be deprivation thinking. But being in your angel circle, it's like literally, it's almost like, they say if you want to really learn a foreign language, you should just go live in the other country for a month because you won't have any choice, And I feel like that's sort of what your angel circle is. It's like if you really want to believe that love is in charge and life is abundant, like just sit in the angel circle for an hour, because there's no other, we don't talk about how things can't happen.
Yeah, and it's part of it is setting the container and the intention, calling in the angels, and it creates an environment of 5D unified field of oneness love, and it is entrainment. A few people holding that vibe, everyone entrains, meaning they ramp up to that frequency, and that's where the magic happens for sure. And I still have angel circles online the first Tuesday of the month from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. It's only $11.11 if anyone would like to join, and you can contact me on Live a Divine Life. That's my website.com. And I have a free chakra clearing on there. I have a free Divine Life activation where I do light language. It's very magical, half an hour meditation. You can check that out on my website. And I'm so grateful you had me on here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shishi. We'd love having you.
I will make sure we put all your information in the comments on YouTube and the podcast and all that stuff too, for people that have access to their computer. Thank you so much, Shishi. I think the three of us could talk for like all day long, but we all have to do other things.
I know.
We didn't even talk about the Conversations with God book, because that book literally changed my life. It was an amazing book. So when you mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, yes.
If someone is like brand new to spirituality, I'm like, just check that book out first.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Start there.
Loved it. Yeah.
Cool.
So powerful. Yeah, great to meet you too, Stephanie. You're such a lovely, light, radiant heart being. I feel you. And Collin, always a joy to be with you. You're such an angel.
I love you so much, my friend.
I'm so happy you came to the meetup group, and we've been friends all these years. I'm proud of the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. This podcast would not be happening if it were not for you and your angel circle and your amazing work. So thank you. It's really.
Thank you, Shishi. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. Okay, big
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching on YouTube or for listening to us on the audio version. We'll be back next week with another episode. So until then, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. And let me
Here's
hit
your
the-
blessings. Mwah.